Welcome to the New Kush podcast, where you have your host, me, Layla. And today's episode, we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. I've been talking about this episode for over a few months now, and that is boundaries. So the reason I wanted to come to the table with boundaries, pull up a seat, is because what brought about the topic was watching Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan Markle's story unfold. In which case, I was watching the story as, Prince Harry meets Meghan, they get together, they get married, they end up married, and I'm really watching emotions as things go about. And one of the things I noticed is how everything was going so well only for it to turn left so soon. And so while I will not be talking specifically about their situation, it did bring in mind the topic of what happens when you have those real life evolutions and you have to reset boundaries. Boundaries at work, boundaries with your friends, boundaries with your identity, how you identify as a person, as a human being, boundaries with your family. And so today's episode, we're going to do it. And first things first, let's get to it. So I have these sound effects over here. So you're going to hear sound effects. I enjoy a good sound effect, okay? So it's just me and you on here. We're gonna have a deep conversation, and let's really get into it. So when I look at the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle situation, one thing I've noticed was that they needed to reevaluate the boundaries of what they could and couldn't do. You had them, we're gonna work for the royal family, we're not gonna work for the royal family, we're gonna be together. And New England, I think we need to move, be closer to, first they went to Canada and then they went to America. As I said, I'm not specifically focused on them. I'm specifically focused on the topic of what does it look like to reset? What does that process looks like when you need to reset your boundary? So before we get into how you reset your boundaries, let's really discuss what boundaries are. Boundaries, if you were to look into the Merriam-Webster dictionary, yes, I did pull out the dictionary. But when you really get into boundaries, you're looking at, when you get into Merriam-Webster's definition, you really get into the definition states that a boundary is something that indicates or fixes a limit or extent. So it's something that indicates or fixes a limit. So it's pretty much setting limits, setting barriers, limitations, lines, and barriers for the most part. And so when you're in a situation where you're like, okay, life's a little bit different for me now. When I first thought about doing this podcast, I really wanted to discuss, my first thought was, hey, I want to discuss the things that's important to me that I'm developing and I'm finding out now that I'm in my 30s. This adulting business isn't all that it was set up to be. What people kept telling me I was going to experience wasn't falling through the way it was. There were things that I was cool with in my 20s. I'm not interested now in my 30s. There were things that I was like, oh, I might not want to do. Now in my 30s, I'm like, bring it on. And so I had to reset my limitations on the things I'm even interested in, people I'm interested in, people I associate with. All of my boundaries have reshifted now that I'm in this, my Jesus year. If you know, you know. Now that I'm in my Jesus years, all of that shifted for me, and it has more to do with my time. Where I was younger, I was on CP time. CP time means I was late for everything. And I was late for being late. Meaning, if you told me to be there at 1, I might, me on time would be 1:20. See, late for my late would probably mean I'm getting there about 1:40. And I was careless with my time because I felt as though I had this limitless amount of it, right? Only for me to find out as I've gotten older and I've had more responsibilities that everyone's time is valuable. My time is valuable just because, or better yet, I should be honest with myself. Once I started prioritizing the things that I wanted in life, and I had expectations of where I wanted to go, who I wanted to be, once those things started falling in line, I was less inclined, for the most part, I want to say I was less inclined to waste my time, and I was less inclined to waste other people's time. The flip side to that is a lot of the people I associated with weren't bothered by, or I should say, there was two people. There were the people who were bothered and the people who weren't bothered. The people who weren't bothered, who were not bothered by me being late, once I started valuing my time, me and them started knocking heads. Or I should say, we ended up not getting along because they were late too. I was showing up at 1:20, they were showing up at 1:25. And so we started knocking heads because once I started realizing, hey, this is valuable to me, my time right now is valuable to me, we ended up having an issue with, well, my time's valuable, so I can't wait till 1:25 for you anymore. If you say you want to be there at 1 o'clock, I'm going to need you to show up at 1 o'clock. I'm willing to give you a 5 or 10 minutes, but I might have to catch you later because my time has now grown to this place, this exponential place of, it's valuable to me now, and I'm not necessarily interested in, just wasting it, just, going out there with it. So that ended up really creating in me, for myself, that ended up creating some roadblocks, because what I found myself doing is re-identifying who I was as a person, right? Initially, I started off with, it's okay to be late, it's okay to be this or that, but once I started getting older, I was like, I don't want to be this late person anymore. I'm re-identifying myself, and in me re-identifying myself, it set a new boundary, because whereas I was no longer willing to be late, I was no longer also willing to allow other people to waste my time either. So if I can't be late, well, you can't be late either. So for my friends who were always on time, they left the maturity to upgrade. But for my friends who weren't, to be fair, I can't force them. You can't force people to meet you at your level, but you also can't stay on that level either. So once you upgrade, you have to move on. And so I think that's a large topic when you get into what happens when you re-identify yourself. You go back to my initial conversation about Harry and Meghan. Wasn't one of the larger conversations the fact that the prince went from being just a regular prince to now being someone's husband, that set in motion other boundaries that he now needed for not only his wife but his children. When we get into that conversation of, when you really get into the master conversation of, well, how do I re-identify myself? What am I looking for? Those larger advancements, those larger title changes, larger life situations, marriage, children. I think of some of my friends who had children. Our boundaries changed as far as when we went out and how long we went out, on what activities we participated in. I think of some of my friends who have recently been married, and even the conversation of the boundaries of what they can and can't do now that they're no longer single. And when I say that, so that they don't put themselves at jeopardy, but they don't put their lives and their situation at jeopardy. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a good friend, you don't put your single friends in situations where they can be disrespected, or they disrespect their situations when it comes to things like marriage. You know, you got a husband, you got a wife. I'm not putting you around a bunch of single people who don't care about your situation. I'm meeting with you on a one-on-one scale, or maybe with a more intimate group of people who will respect your new boundary of you can't be having people all up in your face like you once did at one point in time. You know what I'm saying? Do you get the vibe of going with this? And that can be a stinger. I mean, I've seen people fall out. And I'm sure you have too, when someone moves on. You know, I think of some of my friends who had children, you know, in my 20s. Late night, let's go out to eat, let's go out to drink. Not drink, but like get a drink. Let's have fun. Let's go to a party. Ooh, let's take a flight. Let's travel. Easy peasy. To this day, I got a bag downstairs packed, suitcase packed. I am the person you call. I want to go somewhere. I'm ready. I'm ready for that life. I'm with it. You want to go? You want to go today, or you want to go now? You understand what I'm saying to you? But you get married, you start having kids. You might not be able to move in that time. Why? You have a different level of responsibility. You might need your kids to. You might find yourself in a situation where you need your children to, you might find yourself in a situation where you need your kids to know where your kids are, who's watching over them. You might need to check in more. You can't go on excursions all day. You know what I mean? Like, you might not, and to be fair, you might not want to sit out in the sun all day. You might want to sit by the pool, kick your feet up, and just have, relaxing times. You might not want to do the work and the running, that normal, I can't even say normal, but that, that rah stuff. You understand what I'm saying? You may find yourself in a situation where you're like, that's not for me. And there's nothing wrong with that, because each new stage in our lives requires us to do something different. Each new stage requires us to do something different. So it's absolutely positively nothing wrong with you saying, I don't want to do this right now. Or I don't want to be in this space right now. Or I've changed spaces, I've outgrown this situation. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make me a bad person. Sometimes in us setting boundaries, it's one of the especially when it comes in relationships, one of the caveats of setting boundaries is we both should understand when our boundary line is that we've outgrown each other. I've outgrown this place, and that's a boundary you have to set with yourself. Like, hey, staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning, going to Waffle House, running in the house, going to sleep for 2 hours, turning around, getting dressed, going off the walk, going off to work, stopping at Starbucks with double shots of espresso, and an Americano, make it you buy in your 20s. Now, I'm not saying that's what I did. Allegedly. That make it you buy in your 20s. However, for someone like me, in my 30s, I need my full 8 hours of sleep. If we stay up till 2, don't bother me till 10. Matter of fact, because you had me out till 2, I don't want to talk to you until the next day. I mean, it's already 2 a.m. Don't call me again until 10 a.m. the following day. You've already had me out late. So that's just me, but that's just me on a personal level. I'm tired. I don't want to do that anymore. Like, you understand? Like, I don't, my knees. I don't want to do stuff like that anymore. It's not to say I have bad knees, but I'm saving them for when I really need them. I don't just rip and run the way I used to. Stuff like that causes wrinkles. Look at this beat. Not a wrinkle in sight. And I don't have wrinkles in sight because I don't play those kind of games with my sleep any longer. And so you find that when you're redefining who you are and you're redefining how you operate and you're redefining, you know, when you're going through the mass, I don't know, what do you call that, a concoction? When you start going through that mass concoction of who you are, what you're about, what you have going on, you will find that you find yourself in a situation where you end up finding yourself in a situation where you start redefining who you are when it comes to these boundaries. And as you start redefining who you are, some of the first people to knock up against that, or some of the first people to really become aware, will be your family. Here you are, like I said before, me as somebody who's late. I'm always late. It used to be always late. I'm running 10 minutes, 15 minutes behind, 20 minutes behind, 30 minutes behind. Now that I've gotten better at my time, I no longer do those things. Now I can tell you now that some of the people who have a harder time accepting that would be my family. They went 30 plus years with me be having this specific behavior. And I can pick on myself because, you know, these are conversations, you know, no big beef, but if we're being honest, the example we're working on is time, me being late. I've gotten to this new place where I'm like, okay, I want to be more on time. Let me fix. So as you can see, I have my flat twist in. Hair break. Yes. And so it's pinned up in the back. Yeah, I have my flat twist pinned up in the back. If you can't see, go to my Instagram page and I'll show you a picture of the hairstyle. So I just got my hair done today. Flat twist. Hair break. Okay, and back to it. So, the hair thing was really bothering me. I don't like stuff out of place. And I want to look smooth for the camera. So, these flat twists, yeah. The pins, I have the back pins up and they seem to be sliding. Hopefully by the time they take them out, I take them out. They'll look a little bit uniquer. But anyway, back to the topic. Family. So we'll get into, we'll end up in this conversation of family and how now that I'm redefining being more on time, one of the people that, you know, see, this is the funny thing about family. They have receipts. They know I used to be late. And for a lot of times, they know your dirty secrets. If you love your family like you, and you spend time with your family, you have a good rapport, or even just a basic rapport, they can pull up receipts. And so some of the knockheads on it, knock. Now I'm at this, when you start redefining your identities and you start redefining who you are as a person, one of the largest issue you end up having is okay, I'm redefining who I am. And moving into this new season of trying to better myself, better my health, better my situation. And one of the issues you'll find yourself, one of the larger issues you end up finding is that your family won't let go of who you was, or your family is not sold on who you're interested in becoming, right? And so you can see it like clear as day. Again, one of those people who used to be late. With that behavior conditioned my family to think that I'm always going to be late. So now I'm on time, and they're late. They're late in anticipation of my lateness. They're thinking, oh, you're in the wrong time. You normally show up at 120. I'm gonna show up at 125. Or, oh, you typically arrive later, so I'll arrive later in anticipation. Now that I'm arriving early, I'm looking at them like, nah, who's there? Where you at? Why are you taking so long? And they're like, well, I'm used to you behaving in this certain capacity. And now you have to wait for my transition, almost, right? And so that's something that, I'm being honest, that's something that has to do with your patient level, because you can condition people into not to thinking specific having ideologies about you based off your behavior, the things you say, and based off the things you don't say. Right? I give the example of me being late, but I mean, you can have the same conversation, or you can apply the same situation to people who have addictions. You used to be a drunk, you go to AA, you're sober now, and people still look at you like, hey, but I remember back when. You have the same thing, you have these same connotations, or you have these same situations when you look and when you get around your family and you look at things like, pretty much you could apply it to anything that you've decided to outgrow. Obesity, and I don't mean obesity but I mean sincerely, you may get to a place where, you find yourself not eating healthy, not necessarily taking care of yourself. You get to a place where you're eating healthy and you still have people on your back asking you questions about, hey, well, yeah. What I've come to find is that even though people see change, sometimes it's doubtful. They're still doubtful even though you've changed. You've changed, you've made the decision, but just because you've made the decision to change doesn't mean that you can change other people's opinion about you. There's a saying that, you can just show them. I'm 1,000% a firm believer in that's not your concern. What people think about you, how people react to you, none of your business. And I believe that it's none of your business. To be fair, even if you help set the foundation of it, I believe it's none of your business, because the same way somebody can think something positive about you, somebody can think something negative about you. You understand what I'm saying? So, two people can meet you at the same time. Somebody has a positive thought, somebody has a negative thought. At the end of the day, you literally have done nothing differently. Whichever way the pendulum rocks has more to do with people's internal issues than yours. So when you're going through this phase of identities, one of the things I think is really helpful is when you're going through a place of you're setting new boundaries. One, I think you should stick to them, especially when it comes to your family, siblings, parents, even if they bring up, because don't forget about the guilt trips. Well, remember last week, last year, last month, you did X, Y, Z. Has nothing to do with this new change in you. And let us be fair, you are allowed to change, develop, and create new boundaries. There's no such thing as because when you were 15, you like to overshop. Because you were 20, you liked eating beef. Because there's no rule that says because you like something in your past, you now have to like it in your future, or because you because you contributed to certain behaviors in your past, you now have to take them into your future. So you have to be careful with that. One, you have to be careful with making sure when you are setting up boundaries that you don't let people guilt you. But two, you have to understand that when you're redefining boundaries with your families, it is 1,000% okay. I think one of the boundaries that everyone has to reestablish at some point in time, when they grow up, especially if they have parents in their lives that they're close to, is reestablishing what your relationship looks like once you become an adult. There's this loose, I don't want to call it agenda, but it's this loose ideology that because you are someone's child and they've parented you, that they must always parent you, and that you must always identify. I guess that would be the best way to put it. You must now always identify with however they've decided, not you decided, but they've decided to handle things. And so, and I think that's completely wrong. I feel like when you're younger and you're around your parents, they're meant to parent you. But as you get older and you become an adult, it's more about a mentorship. And as you then get even older than that, you guide yourself into a reverse caretaker role. As I do believe at some point in time you should take care of your parents if they're good to you. I'm not saying you have to take care of them financially, but you do need to honor them at some point in some decent way. And once they're elderly, even if it's just making sure that they have a place to sleep, I do feel like you are responsible for their physical well-being and making sure in their older years that they have some type of care. With that to being said, you are not responsible for them before they become that age. You are not required to allow them to minimize you or to parent you as an adult because they don't know how to turn it off. That's a boundary that's often done where you have, okay, you're 20, 25, you're 30, and you have a parent who wants to still parent you, tell you where to go, who to dress, who to date. You have to reevaluate those boundaries with parents at some point in time. With age, what that looks like, that's different for everyone. I know people who, well, I can only speak for myself. Let's go there. I know that when it comes to my parents, that not parenting me, my parents, to be fair, my parents don't know how to not parent. They are like, they're old school parents. So us me guiding them into an adult, that was actually, looking back at it, that's something I'm still processing with them, right? I remember us having more tug of wars of me telling you no doesn't mean I'm being disrespectful. It just means that whatever you've asked of me doesn't work for me, pretty much. And I think that the transition's a little bit more easier for me now because I can identify one, what my boundaries are, and two, I can articulate it better. I think that's sometimes where we mess up. We know the things that we desire, we may know the things that we want, but we may not be able to articulate the things that we want and the things that we desire. So when you can articulate it, when you can bring it together, it makes life a lot easier. It makes life a lot easier when you could. And even when it comes to your siblings, right? I have siblings. I have 3 siblings, and with us growing up, it's really this resetting boundaries as adults of what we share, what we don't share, what I'm required to do now as your sibling, as an adult, versus what I'm not required to do. Sorry, that's my phone. Those are all things that I find to be fascinating at this time. And part of the reason I find it to be so fascinating is because You know, I grew up in a household, siblings, we shared everything. There was no such, we pretty much, but then as we became older, we became teenagers, it went from we share everything to, well, I might not necessarily want to share my new stuff. I know one of the things that's always talked about is my perfume collection. I love to smell good. You can't see me. Well, we won't, the people who are listening can't see me. You can see me. And the between the two y'all can't smell me, but I have perfume on right now. Like full shower, full bath, and I did take a full shower and a full bath. Beat face, nice outfit. I picked out today's outfit specifically for recording, and I made sure I smell good. You can't smell me, but it makes me feel clean. And I don't smell good like after a shower, you come out smelling all dovey. After that, I also want to smell good. Why? Because if I were in, this is my after day outfit, but if I were to go somewhere, I want to be smelled. That's my thing. I like to smell good. I like going places, and I like when people turn their head and they say, "Ooh, girl, what you wearing?" That's my thing. That's my thing. It's something I started doing as an adult. It's a collection. I have many perfumes. I'm always looking to expand my collection, and it's something I'm very passionate about. Fast forward, I have siblings. No, you can't use my perfume. And especially now that I've gotten older, because the perfumes that I now wear are older. They're more expensive. When I was a teenager, you work a couple of hours, you work a couple of days, you get your shift over, you go to the mall, first thing you're going to do, you're picking up your Versace's, your Chanel's and stuff like that. Even back then, it was like, okay, maybe 2 spritz, not the whole bottle. Now I'm older, I'm like, buy your own. And a part of me setting that specific boundary has to do with importance. I find smelling good to be very important. I find being able to buy perfumes very important. I have a perfume budget in my budget for the month, so that way I can always have new scents. I can always refill. If that's not something you're doing, if it's not that important to you, why you want to use mine? You understand what I'm saying? Like, for me, then as I'm older, I'll gift. Don't get me wrong. If I find that there's a scent that I have and that my siblings like it, then I'll gift them. I'm notorious for giving away a bottle of perfume or cologne. Even to the males in my family, like I'm notorious for. It's nothing like sending them over some Estee Lauder or some Polo or something like that. Just making sure that as they look good, they also smell the part. And what I've come to find is that in me setting boundaries when it comes to my family, one of my boundary lines is that I prioritize things based off of how you prioritize them. So if buying perfume I know isn't a priority to you, then it's not a priority to me to share my perfume. That's just how I personally feel. If us getting together, if us going out, eating, meeting up isn't a priority for you, then I'm not over prioritizing myself for you. That's just the way I am. Understanding and patience is key. You grow up, people get married, people start dating, people have other friends. So you have to understand where patience is key. And I think being more flexible and understanding where people fall in line and how life pretty much goes for them, that is something that I find to be key. However, I think that it is extremely important when you're dealing with family or when you're redefining yourself, to establish those boundaries with your family first, because you're going to walk through the door when you start identifying who you are, what you're about, what you want to make happen in your life. And the first people that it'll start to affect are people's closest to you. And for some of us, like myself, that is your family. When you start re-identifying who you are, and you start re-identifying the things you want in life, another place, the next place it's going to affect is your money, and that would be work. To be fair, I was never late to work, and I was never late to work because I was always early to work, and I was always early to work because I knew there's a possibility that if I try to get there on time, I'm really late. And so in this new work season post-COVID, nothing of that then, because during COVID everyone was remote, and you know it's very hard to be late rolling out of your bed and walking over to your computer. But pre-COVID, when everyone had to go into the office, or pre-COVID, or even post-COVID, when people started to start going back into the office, it became a priority. It was always a priority for me to be early. I like being early when I get to work, and part of the reason I like being early is because I like to set up my situation. You know, you have your laptops, your documents, my to-do list. I start off with, you know, breakfast. I finish up, you know, whatever latte I have in the cup. All of those things, so I don't necessarily have to rush. And I deal with a lot of meetings, and so figuring out and reading over what points I want to make in a meeting, how I want to articulate myself, what work needs to be done, all of those things to me are just important. Extremely, extremely, extremely important. And because I know those things are important, I make sure I reach out and I attempt to be a better version of myself and showing up as my best self. With that being said, before COVID, I found myself in a particular place where I was going to work early, working throughout the day, going to lunch, staying late into the evening, and coming home well past when I was anticipated coming home, in a sense of let me finish up these things to make my next day easier, which led to me working. Before COVID, I was working easily 60 hours a week. Not your average 40, I was giving them an extra 20 hours. After COVID, though, once I stopped and I had time to take a beat, take an understanding, there was so much more going around in the world. There was so much extraness. So many other things we needed to care about. You fast forward and today's date, I don't have 60 hours to get to work. I've had to start creating boundaries on when I'm going to go to work, what I'm going to do when I'm at work, how long I can stay, what meetings I start accepting. You know, in the beginning it was, well, if someone invited you to something, you should go. Even if you don't have anything to say, you should be there just so you can know what's going on in the company. Now that makes no sense for me to be there. I don't have to give my opinion. The work that's being done won't directly affect me. I can receive the cliff notes from someone else who attended. My time can be better spent somewhere else. You see what I'm saying? Like for me, it's been, if my time is more important to me now, then it's extremely important for me to make sure that regardless of what's going on in my life, regardless of what's going on around the company I keep, regardless of what's going on in my family, that I protect my time. And I have to protect my time even when I'm in work situations. Like, it has to make sense. Now, does that mean I don't go into work early? No, that doesn't mean that. I still get up early in the morning. I'm still going to work early. What it does mean is that I do everything I'm supposed to do that day. And when the clock strikes, time for me to get off. And when it's time for when it's time for me to leave, I leave. I write down my notes of what I need to complete. I leave. If there's no emergency, then I leave. The reason I leave is because they paid me for a specific amount of time to do a specific amount, to do specific work. And even though the extra makes it look like, yes, I'm working harder, and there's nothing wrong with working harder, the truth of the matter is that in this day and age, I'm at a place where it's not just about working hard, it's about working smart. And is it smart for you to try to do all of your work in one day? No. So setting those boundaries at work, even with assignments I take on, I've had to say, hey, that doesn't necessarily look like something I should be in. Or hey, and let's be fair, you have what you think, and then you have what you say. And so sometimes you're sitting there and somebody will say, oh, can you do this for me? And what you think is, but what you end up saying is, I appreciate you considering me for this assignment. I feel as though my time would be better spent handling X, Y, and Z. And leave it there. And to be fair, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely positively nothing wrong with looking at something and saying, you know what? I think it's a good idea to set the boundary of what work you take on, what work you don't take on. I think it's appropriate for you to set the boundary of how long you work, when you stop working, even how you coach or how you need to be coached. It's okay to set a boundary and say, hey, I need to be coached. So I'm only now accepting positions that will further me or up me or advance me. I'm looking to, expand my resume. So I'm looking for that. And when it comes to boundaries and work, you set the tone. If you ever go into work every day and you say, I hate my job, then the first person you have to check in with is yourself. Because work environments, even though they're filled with people, are brick and mortar. That's all a company is. It's brick and mortar. It's an entity. It's not a person. So when you go in there and you start having these feelings of projections of I don't want to be here, it has more to do with your evolution as a person than the bricks and the mortar of the building itself, or the theoretical projection of the building itself. And then lastly, we get into boundaries. And the last boundary you have to start setting, or you have to reset, I should say, when you're getting to a place of identity. When you're in a place where you're redefining who you are, would be your friends. And I left this one for last because if we're being honest, I can do this topic. Let me move the mic so you can hear. I can do the topic of friends all day. Let me say it for the people in the back. All day. But we're not going to do that. And the reason I can go through the topic of friends is all day when it comes to boundaries is because friendships themselves come in phases. You have your seasons, winter, fall, spring, summer, where seasonal friends are only meant to be, short distance in time, or specific. Another season is specific opportunities. Some friends are not meant to leave specific places. Like, for instance, you might find yourself in a situation where you have a season of friends at work, and you're in that season is just for work. those friends aren't meant to follow you outside of the work environment. Then you have those friends who are meant on a time capsule where they're only meant to last you 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, freshman year, high school, college. Compatible. You understand what I'm saying? Like, friendships can last in seasonal frames. You have yours that'll last in environments, meaning this person is only meant to support you in this specific environment. And then you have those friendships that, to me, I would consider a tree. They're just meant to grow and grow and grow until somebody cuts it down. And to me, those are your lifelong friends. They're not going anywhere unless there's like a major disaster. With that being said, when you're in this place of you're redefining who you are and resetting your boundaries, when you're in a place of friendship, when it comes to your friends, they're like your family in the sense that they're also mostly affected by how you redefine yourself. You know, I started off talking about my friends who have recently been married and my friends who recently had children. My friends who have children, they are no longer able to go to the places we used to go to. They're not, and they don't want to be in the same environments that they used to be. You have situations where they no longer want to be around certain individuals, you know, or put in certain situations where it would jeopardize them from being able to go back to their children, or jeopardize them in the sense of the relationships they have with, with people that support their children. Same thing comes with my married friends. My friends, guys or girls, don't want to put their relationships in jeopardy. And get this, there's nothing wrong with that. Completely nothing wrong with that. I think it's very understandable to say, hey, especially if you were one of those people that went to the wedding, spent the money, wear the dress, shoes, makeup, hair, whether you were a bridesmaid or just an honorary guest, you should also want to support them in an endeavor, if for no other reason, because you've put time, money, and energy you've invested into the reunion. You don't want to put them in a position where they would have to break something, or they would be jeopardizing what they have going on. With that being said, when it comes to your friends, sometimes when you're setting up boundaries, it doesn't have to do with necessarily a larger entity change like marriage or children. Sometimes it's just you waking up some day saying you want to be a better version of yourself. You want to be a more bolder version of yourself. You want to be a more optimistic version of yourself. When you start changing who you are at your core, and you're like, hey, this is what I want to do, this is who I want to be, you can also find that you have to now reset your boundaries. Because whereas it was cool maybe back in the day when you and your friends were just, lollygagging, and we'll go with, you start going to the gym, now you want to eat better. Late night pizzas, late night Chinese food, eating all the time, not caring what you eat, might have been a thing then. I use the example of gym because I literally live in a gym. And these girls been going to the gym trying to get the tone back, or get my tone to a different place, I should say. And now that I'm at this space of working out all the time, when you invite me out, I want to see the menu. How many calories am I going to eat? I can't necessarily drink all them lemonades. I don't want to get fat with you. I'm trying to lose weight. I don't want to get fat with you. Now, my friends who I used to pig out with, the ones who I used to be greedy with, they may look at me strange. And get this, they have a right to. Why? Because they know me to be the person they could call up on a late night. Let's go get some food. Let's go, I'm not watching my figure. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. Now that I've reestablished who I am, and I go to the gym more, I've had to reset the boundary of, oh, I don't eat past 7. I don't eat past, and I actually don't eat past 7. I don't eat past 7. I don't eat this amount of carbs. I don't attend this level restaurants. You know, I'm not going to be eating these type of foods. And they have a right to look at me weird, like, girl, since when? But I still have the right to enforce this boundary. Why? Because I have this new version of myself, this better version of myself that I'm interested in meeting, and that's where I want to be. Now, if the late-night phone calls stop with dinner invitations and lunch invitations, because to them, your girl's just no more fun, that's okay. Because that might have just been that season. That was the season, you know, this new season of me is I want to be a healthier version of myself. The past season was I was comfortable eating out, and I was eating good too, y'all. I think that's been the biggest things I missed, is that your girl can eat, but I was eating real good. It's okay for my friends who still are in that season that they want to eat real good. There's nothing wrong with them saying, hey, I still want to do this. I still want to behave this way. I still want to get into this. There's nothing wrong with them. And there's nothing wrong with me, because I'm allowed to eat the way I want to eat, but they're allowed to continue the life plan that they have. And if we have to say bygones be bygones, that's okay. If we have to say, okay, maybe we need a new activity so that we can both, you know, meet up again, that's cool too. Yes, resetting boundaries with your friends, you can't necessarily always take it personally when you outgrow yourself. You can outgrow who you are. They can outgrow who they are. I've outgrown who I am. And it's nothing personal. They didn't do it to like be mean to you. You didn't do it so you can leave them behind. You're not required to hold on to your past version of yourself, or to sacrifice the new changes or your new dreams and optimism you have for yourself just because other people aren't ready to advance. It's okay to walk away and know that you've done something different and they've done something different. It's okay to do those things. No harm, no foul. No harm, no foul. And so when you're redoing your relationship with family, you're redoing your relationship with your friends, or even when you're redoing your relationships at work, resetting those boundaries are personal. And so that's why I haven't given you steps. Like, I'm sure you're looking at this and like, girl, you're talking pretty good, but give me the steps. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Here's the thing. I'm not going to do that because your boundaries look different and sound different than mine. What I can tell you is that when you're rethinking your boundaries, write them down, articulate them to the best that you can, write them down, and then look up the definitions of the major words and make sure that you're really articulating, because you want to get to the baseline of this. You want to get to the baseline of the boundaries, whether it be, you know, like when I was setting the boundaries up for my weight loss, I was like, okay, I don't want to eat late because I'm a late night snacker. I don't want to eat late. I know that contributes to weight gain. This is when my cutoff time is. That's going to be the boundary. You have to do the same thing. Whether you're setting a boundary because you are reinventing who you are, or you're setting a boundary because something is annoying you, and you know that, you know, you may have a situation where you're a yes person. Yes. That's all you know how to do, and you don't know how to enforce your no's. Write that down. When you're setting up your boundaries, write down your problem, write down your solution, articulate that boundary so you understand. Because you want to know what you're limiting, and you want to know what you're protecting. It's important to know what you're limiting, but it's extremely important to know what you're protecting. And you can't say, oh, I'm protecting X, Y, and Z if you don't know upfront what those limits are, what those boundaries are. And once you have that, start repeating them over and over. I'm setting this boundary because I'm protecting this, And this is where my cutoff point is. And the reason you have to remind yourself is because you want to be able to memorize. You want to be able to memorize it so that when you have to set up your boundary, you have to hit somebody with a no. You have to hit somebody with a... You can articulate that to them. And when people try to jump over your boundary, because they will, you know, your family will try to nudge, wink, wink. Come on, girl, you know, you can let it slide this one time. Your friends will go, that's not what you were saying last week. That's not what you were saying last month. Girl, I still got the videos from back when. When someone tries to jump over your boundaries, the first thing you need to do is ask them why. And then ask them why. Say, hey, this is where my cutoff point is. This is why I'm protecting myself from this. Why are you comfortable? Why are you so comfortable asking me to do something, one, I not only don't want to do, but comfortable asking me to do something that I know won't benefit me any longer? Let them answer that question, see what they say. And if they hit you with the, oh, it's not that big a deal, then be honest with them and say, but it is to me now. Be honest with them, but it is to me now. I've gotten to a place when it comes to my boundaries where I set my boundaries, I articulated my boundaries, and I reinforced my boundaries. Well, I restated my boundaries, and people called my bluff. You ain't gonna do nothing. What you think you're gonna do? Sincerely. And I've had to cut people off. My boundary is, I no longer behave this way. I'm no longer comfortable with this. This XYZ doesn't work for me. And it's not that big a deal. See, this is the thing, it is that big a deal. It's such a big deal to me that if you can't respect the boundary, then I can't respect spending time with you. I got the back. I have to fall back. If you can't respect my boundary, then I have to respect myself enough to operate in a different manner, because it's not a good idea for me personally to do these things. So I hope you guys enjoyed talking to me or hearing me talk. Again, this episode 1. This topic has been something that's been on my mind a lot. Again, like I said, it actually started with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, but it's developed a lot more over time because I find myself going through this retrograde change in my personality and the things I desire. And as I'm going through this change now, trying to find that happier version, trying to find this healthier version of myself, I found that the first step to me being a healthy version of Layla dealt largely with me implementing and reinforcing boundaries that I either had not been reinforcing or wasn't aware that I needed. And so this is my first episode. If this is your first time watching, which it probably is, go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel. I want you to take a screenshot of the video and post it, tag me in it. I'll give you a shout out. I thank you so much for your time today, and like I said before, it's always been a pleasure. I hope all things work well with you. I hope you guys have a great evening. Bye.